The chief looked at the cowboy and asked with disdain, "Cowboy or Apache warrior?" The woman lowered her gaze for a second, then lifted her head and answered something no one expected. The cowboy stood frozen. The entire hall fell into absolute silence, and everyone understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and comment where in the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The sun was just coming up, painting the Arizona sky in colors of orange and pink. At Blackwater Ranch, the day began like any other. "You there, the new man, look at me." Chief Tom's voice cut through the quiet morning. He stood on the porch of the main house, a tall man with broad shoulders. His hands were on his hips. All the cowboys stopped what they were doing. A young man with red hair stepped forward. "Yes, sir." Tom did not look at him. His eyes were on a woman sitting on a horse near the corral, Maria Blackwater. Her back was straight, her long dark hair in a single braid. "You see her?" Tom said to the new cowboy, pointing at Maria. "She knows this land good as any man here, maybe better. But I got a question for her." He turned his head slowly toward Maria. A simple question. Maria's horse, Spirit, shifted his feet. Maria kept her eyes on Tom. "This new man," Tom said, his voice loud for everyone to hear. "He is a cowboy. He works for me. He knows his place." He paused. The ranch was silent. "So, Maria Blackwater, I want you to choose. Right now, are you a cowboy or are you an Apache warrior?" One of the older cowboys looked at the ground. Another coughed. The new man's face went red. Maria did not move. She looked from Tom's hard face to the new cowboy, who seemed to wish he was anywhere else. She felt a hot anger start in her chest. This was an old game, a game that asked her to cut herself in half. "Well," Tom said, "your mother was Apache. Your father was one of my riders. So which is it? Pick a side. Are you with us, working this land? Or are you with them, dreaming of the old days?" Maria looked down at the dry earth between her and the porch. She saw the dust, a small rock, the shadow of the porch post. She took a slow breath. Then she looked up, her dark eyes meeting Tom's. "I am not a cowboy," she said, her voice clear and steady. "And I am not an Apache warrior." She saw Tom's mouth start to form a satisfied smile. She kept talking. "I am both. My father taught me to work this land. My grandfather taught me the history of this land. They are the same land." Tom's smile vanished. "That's not an answer. That's a story." "It is the true story," Maria said. She nudged Spirit forward a few steps. The horse's hooves were quiet on the dirt. "Your story says your family took this land. My story says your family was allowed to stay on it." She looked at the faces of the crew, men she had known for years. "My ancestor, an Apache man, saved the life of your great-grandfather, right here, by the water spring in the canyon. He did not take his life, he saved it. So your great-grandfather was not a conqueror, he was a guest, and a guest should remember his manners." The air went out of the ranch yard. No one moved, no one breathed. Tom's face changed from tan to a deep, dark red. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. "You watch your mouth," he said, his voice a low growl. "I am watching," Maria said. "I have always watched. You see a fence line. I see my great-grandmother's footsteps. You see a deed in your office. I see a promise older than that paper." Tom took one step off the porch. "I own this land, every fence post, every blade of grass, every drop of water in that spring. You work for me. You live here because I allow it." Maria shook her head slowly. "We live here because we belong here, long before your name was on any paper." She turned Spirit away from the porch. She did not look back as she rode slowly toward the path that led to her family's home. But she could feel it. The peaceful morning was gone. A line had been drawn in the sand, and she had just crossed it. Behind her, Tom stood frozen. The cowboys went back to work, but their movements were quick and quiet, like they were trying not to be seen. The new man stared at the ground, confused by the storm that had just passed. Tom finally turned and walked into the dark house, slamming the wooden door shut. The sound echoed across the quiet yard. In his office, he stared at the large map on the wall. His eyes went to the far corner of the property, to a small canyon marked with a blue circle, the spring. His jaw tightened. A guest? He was no guest. He would prove it. He would make her understand who was in charge. He would find a way to show everyone that the land was his, and his alone. The quiet after the slam of the door was not peace. It was the space between a match being struck and the fire catching hold. The slam of the door echoed in the quiet house. Tom stood in the cool dark of his office, the red anger on his face slowly fading into something colder. Maria's words played in his head, over and over. Asterisk a guest. You were a guest. He walked to the big window and looked out at the ranch yard. It was empty now. The cowboys had gone to their work. But the feeling was different. The air felt charged, like before a storm. He could still see the look on their faces, the doubt. He had worked his whole life to be the undisputed chief of this land, and in one morning, a few sentences from Maria had put a crack in the wall. "No," he said out loud to the empty room. His voice was hard. "This is mine." He turned from the window and went to the large metal cabinet in the corner. He unlocked it with a key from his pocket. Inside were files and old paper boxes. He pulled out a long, flat drawer. It held maps and land deeds, some so old the paper was the color of cream. He spread the main ranch map on his big wooden desk. He knew every line of it. His father's writing was in the margins. His grandfather's signature was on the oldest survey. He traced the boundary with a thick finger. Then he stopped. In the far northeast corner, a smaller parcel was marked with lighter lines. It was a narrow canyon. A small blue circle was drawn in its center, the spring. He remembered his father talking about it. "That piece is troublesome, Tom. The water's good, but the access is poor. The old Blackwater family is always, well, they've always cared for it." Tom had never asked what that meant. He had assumed it was a kindness, letting the Apache family use a corner of his land. Now Maria's words gave that memory a new, ugly shape. He dug deeper into the cabinet. He found the original land grant and the subsequent property filings. His eyes, used to reading legal papers, scanned the dense text. And then he saw it. A clause. A small paragraph in a filing from his grandfather's time. It described a spring parcel. The words were dry and legal. The water source, known as Whisper Spring, and the immediate surrounding canyon, while within the greater property boundary, is recognized as having a separate historical usage right. Tom read it again. Asterisk, historical usage right. That was the crack. That was the opening. If the spring had a separate status, even on paper, maybe it could be made truly separate. Maybe it could be sold. A hard, cold idea settled in his stomach. If he sold it, he would prove it was his to sell. The money would be good. The ranch had been tight for years. And Maria would see. She would see who had the real power, the real ownership. It would erase her story with the stark, undeniable fact of a signed contract. He picked up the phone on his desk. It was an old rotary phone. His finger spun the dial with firm, deliberate clicks. He called information for Phoenix. "I need the number for Grey Rock Mining Corporation," he said to the operator. A few minutes later, he was listening to the ring on the other end of the line. "Grey Rock Mining. Karen speaking. How may I direct your call?" "I need to speak to whoever is in charge of land acquisition," Tom said, his voice all business. "This is Chief Tom Blackwater. I have a land opportunity in Apache County." He was put on hold. He stared at the blue circle on the map. He thought of Maria's defiant eyes. Asterisk, a guest. His jaw tightened. A man's voice came on the line. "Mr. Blackwater, this is Carl Bridges, CEO. Karen said you have some land to discuss?" "I do," Tom said. "I have a unique parcel, about 200 acres of canyon land. It contains a permanent, high-quality water spring, the only reliable water source for miles in that area. I understand mining operations often need water rights and isolated land for processing." There was a short silence on the other end. "A spring, you say? In a canyon? That is interesting. Water is liquid gold out here. What's the access like?" "There's an old ranch road," Tom said. "It would need work for heavy machinery, but it's doable." "And the price?" Carl Bridges asked. Tom named a figure. It was a high number, a number that would solve a lot of problems. "I'll need to send my surveyor out," Carl said. "But that sounds promising, very promising. What's the timeline?" "As soon as possible," Tom said, his eyes fixed on the map. "I'm ready to move forward." He hung up the phone. The office was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. It was filled with the hum of his plan. He had drawn a line of his own. He would sell the spring, the heart of Maria's story, and turn it into a quarry. The mining would poison the water. The bulldozers would erase the canyon. And with it, they would erase the truth Maria had thrown at him. He did not feel triumph. He felt a grim, heavy certainty. This was how you mended a crack in the wall. You tore down the whole section and rebuilt it. He would rebuild his legacy, even if he had to bury a spring and a story to do it. The path from the main ranch to her family's home was one Maria had ridden 1,000 times. But today, the familiar red rocks and scrub oaks seemed to watch her pass. Spirit's gait was steady, but Maria's mind was racing. She could still feel the heat of Tom's stare on her back. She had said the words. She had drawn the line. Now, she had to tell her family what she had done. Her younger brother Ben was repairing a fence rail near their small house. He saw her face as she dismounted. "What happened?" he asked, dropping his hammer. His voice was tight. He could always sense her anger. Maria tied Spirit to the post. "Tom, he made a show this morning. Asked me to choose in front of everyone, Cowboy or Apache." Ben's face darkened instantly. "He what? That old—" I answered. Maria cut him off. She looked toward the house. "Is grandfather inside?" "He's in the back, sitting in the shade." "Maria, what did you say?" "I told him the truth," she said, walking past him toward the simple wooden house. Her grandfather, Samuel, was in his usual chair under the Palo Verde tree. His eyes were closed, but he opened them as she approached. He saw everything. "Granddaughter," he said, his voice a soft rasp. "Your spirit is loud today." Maria sat on the low stone wall beside him. Ben followed, standing with his arms crossed. "Tom forced a choice this morning," Maria began again. She told them the story, repeating the words she had said. When she got to the part about his great-grandfather being a guest, Ben let out a sharp laugh. "You told him that? To his face?" Ben said. A smile broke through his anger. "I wish I could have seen it." Samuel did not smile. He listened, his old lined face still. When Maria finished, he was quiet for a long time. "This truth was a sleeping stone," Samuel finally said. "You have turned it over. Now, what lives underneath will come out." "Good," Ben said, his fist hitting his palm. "Let it come out. Let him see what we really think of him and his papers. We should go to the tribal council. We should call the news from Phoenix. We should protest right at his ranch gate." "And then what?" Samuel asked, looking up at his grandson. His dark eyes were calm, but sad. "He will call the county sheriff. There will shouting. There will be hands pushing, then fists, then worse. Anger is a fire. It burns the one who holds it first." Ben threw his hands up. "So we do nothing? We just let him talk to her like that? He wants to erase us, grandfather. He wants to pretend we are just workers he allows to stay. I am sick of allowing." Maria watched them, the heat of her own anger beating against the cool wall of her grandfather's wisdom. She felt split in two. Part of her was with Ben, ready to scream, to fight, to make Tom see their rage. The other part knew Samuel was right. A war would destroy them. Tom had more power, more money, more men. "I do not want a war," Maria said, her voice low. "I want to save the spring." Ben turned to her, frustrated. "How? By asking him nicely? He just told you what he thinks of you. Talking is over, Maria. Fighting him head-on will not work," she said, standing up. "He has lawyers. He has papers. We need better papers. We need a different truth, one he cannot ignore." Samuel's gaze followed her. "What are you looking for?" "Proof," Maria said. "Not just our stories. A written proof. Something that shows our family's tie to that spring is older than his claim. Something that even white man's law must see." Ben shook his head. "More looking at old dust. While we look, he will be acting." "Then we must look faster," Maria said. She looked at Samuel. "Grandfather, you have the old things. The trunk from your mother. Are there maps? Letters? Anything about the spring?" A shadow passed behind Samuel's eyes, a deep, old weariness. He looked down at his knotted hands. "There are many old things, many memories. Some are painful to wake up." "More painful than losing the spring?" Ben asked, his tone sharp. "More painful than him winning?" Samuel sighed, a sound like wind through a dry canyon. He did not answer Ben. He looked at Maria. "The black trunk, in my room." The key is under the blue stone on the window ledge. Maria nodded. She felt a surge of purpose, a direction for her anger to flow that was not just shouting. She turned to go into the house. "I will help you look," Ben said, though his voice still held frustration. "No," Maria said. "You finished the fence. Let me look first." Ben started to argue, but Samuel spoke. "Let her go, Benjamin. This search is for her hands first." Ben scowled but picked up his hammer again, hitting the fence post with more force than necessary. Maria walked into the cool, dim house toward her grandfather's small room. Her heart was a steady drum in her chest. She felt alone, caught between her brother's fire and her grandfather's deep, silent sorrow. But she had to find something, a piece of history solid enough to stop the war that was coming. The blue stone on the window ledge was smooth and cool. Maria picked it up and found the small, tarnished key underneath. Her grandfather's room smelled of sage and old wood. In the corner sat the trunk, made of black iron-reinforced wood, its surface dusty. She fit the key into the lock. It turned with a heavy click. Taking a deep breath, she lifted the lid. The smell of time wafted out, dry paper, faded cloth, and memories. She began carefully. On top were her grandfather's old clothes, a worn buckskin shirt, a faded bandana. Beneath those, she found bundles of letters tied with string, and photographs in a small tin box. She saw the face of her mother, young and smiling. It made her heart ache. She set the photos aside gently. She was looking for maps, anything with lines that showed the canyon. She lifted a layer of wool blankets. Underneath, her fingers touched something flat and stiff, wrapped in a piece of soft, tanned deer hide. This was different. It was hidden. She lifted the bundle out and placed it on the floor. She unwrapped the hide. Inside were a few pages of very old paper, brittle and yellowed at the edges. One was a hand-drawn map showing the canyon and the spring, marked with Apache words she recognized. Her breath caught. This was something. Beneath the map was a single sheet of paper, folded many times. The writing on it was in English. The ink faded to a pale brown. The handwriting was formal and sloping. It was not her grandfather's hand. She unfolded it carefully, afraid it might tear. She started to read. The words were old-fashioned and hard to understand at first. She read slowly, sounding them out in her mind. Asterisk. To my friend Standing Bear and his family, I write this on the 3rd day of October, in the year 1882. I have recovered from my fever. The doctor in Tucson says I should have died from it. I know it was you who found me by the water. I know it was your medicine that brought the fever down. You saved my life. I owe you a debt that cannot be paid with money. As a mark of my gratitude and my word, I promise this. The spring where you found me, known as Whisper Spring, and the land of the canyon that holds it, will forever belong to you and your children's children. No cattle of mine will drink there. No fence of mine will cross it. It is your place for as long as the water flows. This is my solemn vow. Signed, William J. Blackwater Asterisk. Maria read it again, then a third time. The names burned into her mind. William J. Blackwater, Tom's great-grandfather, Standing Bear, her own great-great-grandfather. The room felt very still. The sounds from outside, Ben hammering, a bird calling, seemed to come from far away. She was holding it. The proof. A promise. Not just a story, but words written in ink. A vow that Tom's own blood had made and signed. She stood up, her legs feeling weak. She held the letter and the map and walked back outside into the sunlight. Ben saw her face and stopped his work. What? What did you find? Samuel looked up. His eyes went to the papers in her hand, and a deep sadness settled on his features. He knew. Maria walked to him. She held out the letter. You had this, she said. Her voice was not angry. It was quiet, full of shock. All this time, you had his promise. Samuel took the paper. His old fingers trembled slightly as he touched the signature. He did not need to read it. He knew every word. Why? Maria asked. The word hung in the air between them. Ben came closer, trying to read over Samuel's shoulder. What is it? What does it say? It says the spring is ours, Maria said, her eyes locked on her grandfather. It says Tom's family has no claim. It has his great-grandfather's signature. Why did you hide it? Samuel let out a long, slow breath. It was a time of great anger, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. When my father held this paper, men like William Blackwater were gone. New men were here, men who did not remember promises. They had lawyers and guns. If my father showed this paper, they would have taken it. And then they would have taken him, or worse, they would have taken me or your mother. He looked at Maria, his eyes gleaming with old pain. I hid it to protect you. I thought the knowing was a burden. I thought it was a seed of a war I did not want my family to fight. But now the war is here anyway, Ben said, his voice intense. He had read enough of the letter to understand. This is it. This is the proof. This stops everything. Maria knelt in front of her grandfather. She put her hand over his, the one holding the fragile paper. You carried this to protect us, but the truth does not disappear, grandfather. It waits. Now Tom is trying to sell the spring. He is trying to destroy it. This paper is the only thing that can stop him. Samuel nodded slowly. He looked from Maria's determined face to Ben's fiery one. He saw the burden had already passed to them. The war had found them, with or without the paper. It is your fight now, he said, his voice heavy. He pressed the letter back into Maria's hand. You must carry it. Maria closed her fingers around the old paper. It felt light, and yet it was the heaviest thing she had ever held. It was not just a piece of paper. It was a life saved, a promise made, 100 years of silence, and now, her only weapon. She looked toward the main ranch house, invisible beyond the hills. Tom was in there, looking at his maps and his deeds. He thought he held all the power. He thought his story was the only one that mattered. Now she had the words that could break his story in two. The old letter felt like a live coal in Maria's hand. She walked back into the house, Ben and Samuel following her. She found a clean, flat folder made of cardboard and carefully slid the fragile paper inside. We go now, Ben said, his energy buzzing around the small room. Right now, before he has more time to think. I will go, Maria said, her voice firm. Alone. No, Ben said immediately. He'll just bully you. You need me there. You will shout, Maria said, looking at him. You will get angry. That is what he expects. That is what he knows how to fight. This, she said, holding up the folder, is something different. It is quiet. It is a fact. I need to show him alone. Samuel nodded from his chair by the table. The wolf knows how to fight another wolf. It does not know how to fight the quiet rock that breaks its tooth. Ben scowled but didn't argue further. He knew his own temper. Maria did not change her clothes. She wore the same jeans and work shirt from the morning. She wanted Tom to see her as she was, not a visitor, but a person of this land coming to claim a truth. She drove the old ranch truck down the dusty road toward the main house. She knocked on the heavy wooden door of the office entrance. There was no answer. She knocked again, harder. After a moment, the door swung open. Tom stood there, still dressed in his work clothes. His face was a mask of impatience. What do you want? I'm busy. We need to talk, Maria said. It is important. We talked enough this morning, he said, starting to close the door. This is not about this morning, she said, not moving. This is about 1882. Tom's hand stopped. His eyes narrowed. He stared at her for a long second, then stepped back, opening the door wider. Come in then, make it quick. She walked into the office. The map was still spread on his desk. He did not offer her a chair. He stood behind the desk, a symbol of his authority. Well, he said. Maria opened the cardboard folder. She did not hand the letter to him. She placed it carefully on the desk in front of him, the faded writing facing up. Read it, she said simply. Tom looked down. His eyes scanned the page. At first, his expression was one of annoyed curiosity. Then, as he read the salutation, asterisk, to my friend standing bare, asterisk, his face changed. It went still. He leaned forward, bracing his hands on the desk. His eyes moved slowly, word by word, over the promise, the description of the spring, the vow. He read the signature, asterisk William J. Blackwater. The color drained from his face. He picked up the paper, his fingers trembling just slightly. He read it again, his lips moving silently over the date, the names. The room was utterly silent except for the low tick of a clock on the wall. When he finally looked up at Maria, his eyes were wide, hollow. Where did you get this? It was in my grandfather's trunk, where it has been for a very long time. It's a fake, he said. but his voice lacked force. It was a weak reflex. "It is not a fake," Maria said calmly. "The paper is old. The ink is faded. The map was with it. You can have someone look at it, but you know it is real. You know your great-grandfather's name." Tom sank into his leather chair, the letter still in his hand. He stared at it as if it were a snake. The proud, broad-shouldered man seemed to shrink. His whole world was in that piece of paper, and it was not the world he believed in. "He promised," Tom whispered, not to Maria, but to himself. "He gave it away." "He gave thanks for his life," Maria corrected softly. "He made a promise to the man who saved him." Tom shook his head, a slow, disbelieving movement. "My whole life, my father's whole life. We worked this land. We built this ranch. We owned it." He looked up at her, his eyes searching her face for an answer he did not have. "If this is true, what does that make me?" Maria felt a surprising pang of sadness seeing him like this. Broken. "It makes you the grandson of a man who broke a promise. It does not have to make you the man who finishes breaking it." The sadness in his eyes vanished, burned away by a sudden, fierce blaze of shame and anger. He stood up so fast his chair screeched on the floor. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by a defensive fury. "No," he said, his voice rising. "No, this changes nothing. This is just more of your stories. Old words on paper don't change deeds filed at the county office." "It is a promise," Maria insisted, her own calm starting to fracture. "It is his word. His word is dead," Tom roared. He crumpled the top edge of the letter in his fist, and Maria flinched. He saw her fear for the paper, and a cruel smile touched his lips. He carefully smoothed it back out, then held it toward her. "Take your piece of paper. Get off my land, all of you. You want to live on a promise? Go somewhere else and do it. Tom, please, look at what it says." "I see what it says," he shouted. "I see that my family's legacy is a lie, and I will not let a lie told 100 years ago destroy what we built. Get out." He came around the desk and thrust the letter at her chest. She took it, holding the folder tightly. His face was close to hers, red and twisted with pain and rage. "Get out," he repeated, each word a hammer blow. "And if you come back, I will call the sheriff." Maria looked into his eyes and saw there was no reasoning left. The truth had not set him free. It had trapped him in a corner, and a cornered animal is at its most dangerous. She turned and walked out, the precious letter safe against her. As the office door closed behind her, she heard a loud, furious crash from inside, like something heavy being thrown against a wall. The crash echoed in the office long after Maria was gone. A heavy glass paperweight lay shattered against the wall. Tom stood in the middle of the room, his chest heaving. The quiet hum of the night outside felt like a taunt. He looked at his hands. They were the hands of a man who built things, who owned things. But the letter had made them feel like the hands of a thief. Asterisk William J. Blackwater. His own blood. A man who begged for his life and then gave away the land as payment. Shame burned in his throat, hot and sour. It was not the shame of being wrong. It was the shame of his entire life being built on a story that was not true. Every lesson from his father, every proud moment standing on this land, now had the ugly shadow of that promise lying across it. He could not live with that shadow. He walked to his desk, his movements stiff. The map was still there. The blue circle of the spring seemed to pulse under the lamplight. That spring was the proof of the lie. It was the living evidence that his great-grandfather had needed saving, had owed a debt. If the spring was gone, the proof was gone. If the canyon was flattened, the debt was erased. The story would be what he said it was. He would make it true through sheer action. He picked up the phone. His finger dialed the number from memory. It rang 3 times. "Carl Bridges." The voice on the other end was alert, even though the hour was late. "It's Tom Blackwater." "Tom? It's after 10. Everything all right?" "No," Tom said, his voice flat and hard. "We need to move, faster. I want you to send your equipment, tonight." There was a pause on the line. "Tonight? Tom, the final contract isn't even signed. My men need daylight to navigate that canyon road." "You said your men were the best," Tom snapped. "They can use lights. I will sign whatever paper you need. I will fax it now. Send the bulldozers. Start the work at the spring before sunrise." Another, longer pause. Carl Bridges' voice grew careful, businesslike. "This is highly unusual. Is there a problem? A legal challenge?" There is no challenge, Tom lied, the words tasting like ash. I am the law on this land, I own it, and I want it started now. Do you want the water rights or not? He could almost hear the calculations happening in Phoenix, the hesitation of a man who smelled trouble but wanted a deal too much to walk away. All right, Carl said finally. I'll mobilize my night crew. We have 2 bulldozers and a grading truck on another site near Holbrook. I can redirect them. They can be there by 4 in the morning. You'll have the signed contract at my office in 1 hour? You'll have it, Tom said. Then we'll start work at first light. Tom hung up without another word. He found the contract in his drawer. He stared at the blank line at the bottom. Signing this was the final step. It was the act that would bury his great-grandfather's promise under tons of rock and dirt. His hand shook as he picked up a pen. He signed his name with a hard, dark stroke. Maria sat at the small kitchen table. The old letter was in the center, like a sacred object. Ben paced the floor. Samuel sat quietly, his eyes closed. He will not accept it, Samuel said softly, without opening his eyes. A man who finds his foundation is sand will not carefully rebuild. He will try to pour concrete over everything. So what do we do? Ben asked, his pacing frantic. We have the proof. We go to a lawyer tomorrow. Tomorrow might be too late, Maria said. She felt a deep unease, a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Tom's eyes, just before she left, were not the eyes of a man who would wait. She stood and walked to the window, looking out toward the dark shape of the canyon hills. For a long time, she saw nothing but stars and shadows. Then she saw a tiny, distant pinprick of light. Then another. Not stars. They were too low, too yellow. They were moving in a slow line along the horizon, where no ranch road should have traffic in the dead of night. Ben, she said, her voice suddenly tight. He stopped pacing and came to the window. What are those? He asked. Truck lights, Maria said. Big trucks, coming from the north, from the highway. Her heart began to pound. They are heading for the canyon road. Samuel was now standing behind them. He saw the lights and let out a low, sorrowful breath. The concrete, he whispered. Maria turned from the window. The time for talking, for waiting, for lawyers was over. It had run out. Wake up, she said to Ben, her voice urgent and clear. Saddle the horses. Grandfather, please get your coat. We have to go to the spring. Right now. The night was cold and full of shadows as Maria, Ben, and Samuel rode their horses toward the main cluster of ranch buildings. The only sounds were the crunch of hooves on gravel and the distant, growing rumble of heavy engines from the canyon road. Maria carried the old letter, now protected in a leather pouch, close to her body. Lights were on in the bunkhouse. The cowboys were awake, stirred by the unusual noise. A few stood outside in their long johns and boots, squinting toward the distant lights. The ranch foreman, Mike, a man with a gray mustache and tired eyes, was pulling on his jacket. Maria rode Spirit right into the center of the yard and stopped. The cowboys turned, surprised to see her there with her family in the middle of the night. Mike, Maria said, her voice cutting through the low chatter. You hear that? Mike walked over, his brow furrowed. We hear it. Sounds like heavy rigs, on the canyon road. What's going on, Maria? Tom sold the spring, she said. The words landed like stones. He sold the canyon to Gray Rock Mining. Those machines are going to dig it up. They will destroy the water. A mutter went through the men. They looked at each other, confusion on their faces. That can't be right, one of the younger cowboys said. That spring feeds the north pasture. It waters our cattle. He wouldn't cut off his own water, another added. He is angry, Ben said, unable to stay quiet. And he is trying to prove a point. He does not care about the water or the cattle now. He only cares about winning. Maria dismounted. She walked up to Mike and pulled the letter from its pouch. She did not hand it to him, but held it so he could see the old paper in the porch light. This is a letter, she said, loud enough for all to hear. It was written by William Blackwater, Tom's great-grandfather, in the year 1882. She read the most important part, her voice steady. The spring where you found me will forever belong to you and your children's children. It is your place, for as long as the water flows. ***. He wrote this to my ancestor who saved his life from fever. Tom's family hid this promise. My family remembered it. Tonight, Tom is trying to bury it. Mike stared at the faded writing. He was a practical man. He had worked the land for Tom for 15 years. He knew the spring's value, not as a sacred place, but as the lifeblood of the North Range. "He showed you this?" Mike asked, his voice low. "He saw it today," Maria said. "It is the truth. And now, because the truth shames him, he is sending bulldozers to wipe it off the map before the sun comes up. He is not just stealing from my family. He is poisoning the land that feeds you, your animals, and your families." A tall cowboy named Rick spoke up. "What can we do, Maria? He's the boss. He owns the land." "He does not own that spring," Maria said, folding the letter away. "And he does not own your conscience. I am not asking you to fight. I am asking you to stand, to be witnesses, to stand on the land you work and show that some things are more important than a boss's anger." She looked at each of their faces, shadowed and unsure in the dim light. "They are down there right now. We are going to the canyon. We will stand between those machines and the water. You can stay here, or you can come and see what your boss is really doing in the dark." She turned and mounted Spirit in one smooth motion. Ben and Samuel sat ready on their horses. For a moment, nothing happened. The cowboys stood rooted, caught between loyalty and a deep, dawning sense of wrong. Mike let out a long breath. He looked at the ground, then at the distant lights. He thought of his own small house on the ranch, his garden that needed water. He thought of the silent promise on that old paper. "Saddle up," Mike said, not looking at the other men. His voice was rough but clear. "Just to look, just to see." He walked quickly to the stable. Two other cowboys, Rick and a quiet man named Joe, exchanged a glance and followed him. The others stayed behind, watching as the small group saddled their horses in hurried silence. Within minutes, Mike, Rick, and Joe rode out to join Maria, Ben, and Samuel. No one spoke. The group was now 7. It was not an army. It was a handful of people on horseback, riding into the dark toward the growing roar of engines. Maria led the way, following the familiar trail. The letter was a weight against her heart. She did not know if their standing would be enough. She did not know what Tom would do when he saw them there. But for the first time that night, she did not feel alone. The truth had found a few more hearts, and now they were all riding together toward the place where the past and the present were about to crash together. The first gray light of dawn was creeping into the canyon when Maria's group arrived. The sacred spring bubbled quietly from a crack in the red rock, the water clear and cold, flowing into a small pool. The air was still and peaceful, but the peace was an illusion. On the other side of the spring, 2 yellow bulldozers stood like sleeping giants. Their engines were off, but men in hard hats moved around them, attaching chains and checking machinery. A tall man in a clean jacket, Carl Bridges, stood talking with Chief Tom. Tom's back was to Maria. He looked at the spring, but he did not seem to see it. Maria, Ben, Samuel, and the 3 cowboys dismounted. They walked forward and stood in a line between the machines and the water. They did not speak. One of the miners saw them first. He tapped Carl Bridges on the shoulder and pointed. Carl stopped talking. Tom turned around slowly. For a long moment, the only sounds were the spring's gentle trickle and the call of a waking bird. Tom's eyes went from Maria to Mike, the foreman, and the other 2 cowboys. His face tightened in disbelief, then betrayal. "Mike," Tom said, his voice dangerously calm. "Get back to the ranch, now." Mike shifted his weight, but did not move. "Boss, this ain't right. This is our water." "This is my land," Tom roared, the calm breaking. "And you work for me. You're fired, all of you." Carl Bridges stepped forward, looking annoyed. "Tom, who are these people? We have a schedule." "They are no one," Tom said, his eyes locked on Maria. "They are leaving." Ben took a step forward, his hands clenched. "We're not going anywhere. You read the letter. That spring is ours." "The letter is a piece of trash," Tom shouted, taking a step toward Ben. The miners and cowboys all tensed. "This is law. This is a signed contract." He waved a hand at Carl. "Tom," Maria said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through his anger. She did not move from her place in front of the water. "Look at it. Just look." "I see it," he snarled. "I see a water source on my property." "No," Maria said. "Look again. Not with your eyes from the office. Look with the eyes of the man who was dying here. William Blackwater. Your blood. Look at the water that saved his life." Tom's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He glared at her, wanting to shut her up, but his eyes flicked against his will to the spring. He saw the water flowing from the ancient rock. He saw the green plants that grew only there. He saw the quiet pool that had been here for hundreds of years, long before his name was on any paper. Maria saw his gaze change. It was just a flicker. The anger was still there, but underneath it, a crack opened. He was not seeing property. He was seeing the place. Carl Bridges broke the silence. "All right, this is touching, but we have work to do. Men, start the engines. Please move these people." One of the bulldozer operators climbed into his seat. The huge machine coughed, then roared to life. The sound was monstrous in the quiet canyon. The second engine followed. The machines began to roll forward slowly toward the line of people. Ben braced himself. Mike and the other cowboys stood firm, but fear was on their faces. Samuel closed his eyes, his lips moving in a silent prayer. Tom stood frozen, watching the bulldozers creep toward the spring, toward Maria, toward the place his ancestor had promised to protect forever. He saw Maria's face. She was not looking at the machines. She was looking at him. There was no plea in her eyes, just a deep, sad certainty. The image crashed into his mind. His great-grandfather, sick with fever, drinking from this water, being carried to safety, picking up a pen, writing the words, "It is your place for as long as the water flows." A promise, a solemn vow, not a business deal, a debt of life. The lead bulldozer was 20 feet away. The ground shook. "Stop!" Tom's voice was not a shout. It was a rough, broken command. The bulldozer operator, unsure, slowed but didn't stop. Tom turned to Carl Bridges. His face was pale, drained of all its fury. "Stop!" he said again, louder. "The deal is off." "What?" Carl yelled over the engine noise. "We have a contract. You signed it." Tom walked toward him, his steps heavy. He held out his hand. "Give it to me." "Tom, be reasonable. This is business. Give me the contract," Tom roared, the old anger flashing back. But it was directed at the wrong man now. Carl, startled, pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket. Tom snatched it from his hand. Without looking at it, he took the paper in both his hands and tore it in half. He tore the halves again and let the pieces fall to the dusty ground. "Now get your machines off my land," Tom said, his voice hollow. "Get them out of this canyon, now." The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was stunned, heavy, and filled with the echoing end of a 100-year lie. The pieces of the contract lay scattered on the ground like white leaves. Carl Bridges stared at them, his face turning a dark red. He looked from the torn paper to Tom's empty expression. "You'll be hearing from our lawyers, Blackwater," he spat. "This will cost you everything." Tom did not respond. He just looked past him, at nothing. With a furious wave to his crew, Carl Bridges turned and stalked back toward the trucks. "Shut them down. We're leaving. This is a waste of time." One by one, the huge bulldozer engines choked and fell silent. The sudden quiet was startling. The miners, confused but obedient, began packing their tools. The machines turned with groaning effort and rumbled slowly back up the canyon road. Maria watched them go. The physical danger was passing. The spring was safe. But the air was thick with a different kind of pain. Tom still hadn't moved. He stood with his shoulders slumped, all the pride and anger gone from his body. He looked like a man who had just lost a fight, but the opponent was his own history. Ben let out a long, shaky breath. He looked at Maria, his eyes wide. He did it. He actually stopped them. Mike and the other cowboys stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do or where to look. Their boss was a broken statue in the middle of the canyon. Tom finally moved. He turned slowly. His eyes passed over Mike, and there was no anger left in them, only a deep weariness. "You're not fired, Mike," he said, his voice flat. "Go back to work, all of you." He didn't wait for a reply. He began to walk, not toward the ranch road where his truck was, but straight past the spring, past the line of people. He walked as if he were the only person there. As he passed Maria, he slowed. He did not look at her face. He looked at the ground near her feet. "The water still flows," he said, so quietly only she could hear. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of a fact that had broken him. Then he continued walking, past them all, heading up a narrow deer path that led out of the canyon, away from everyone. They watched him go until he disappeared into the rocks. The canyon belonged to the spring sound again. Ben broke the silence. "What now?" Mike cleared his throat. He nodded respectfully to Maria and Samuel. "I'll get the men back to the north pasture, check the cattle." He and the other cowboys mounted their horses and rode off, leaving the Blackwater family alone by the water. Samuel walked to the edge of the spring. He knelt slowly, with a soft groan, and dipped his fingers into the pool. He brought the water to his lips, then touched his forehead. "It is saved," he said. Maria walked to his side. She looked at the clear, bubbling source. She had won. The letter had won. But she felt no joy. She felt a heavy sorrow for the broken man walking alone in the hills, for the generations of silence and lies, for the peace that was shattered and could never be put back exactly as it was. "He believed his whole life in a story," Maria said, "and we had to break it to save this." Samuel stood up, putting a gentle hand on her arm. "Some stories need to be broken so a truer story can breathe. It is a painful birth." Ben came over, his earlier fury completely gone, replaced by confusion. "He just gave up. He walked away." "He didn't give up," Maria said, watching the path where Tom had vanished. "He finally saw the truth, and the truth was too heavy for him to stand in the same place." The sun was fully up now, warming the red canyon walls. The spring glittered. It was over. The bulldozers were gone. The contract was torn. The land was saved. But as Maria stood there, she knew the hard part was just beginning. The battle for the land was finished. The battle for what came after, for all the broken people on it, was about to start. She took one last look at the water, then turned to help her grandfather back onto his horse. They rode home in a silence that was no longer urgent, but was filled with the weight of what had been done and what was yet to be healed. The days after the canyon were quiet, a heavy, waiting quiet. The ranch work continued. The cattle needed water, the fences needed mending, but the men did their jobs with hushed voices and glances toward the main house. Tom stayed inside. The curtains were drawn. Maria stood at the edge of the garden behind their home. She could feel the silence from the big house like a physical pressure. Ben walked up beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her. "Mike says the water in the north troughs is running clear again," Ben said. "The spring is good." Maria nodded, taking the cup. "That's good." Ben sipped his coffee. "So what do we do now? We just go back to normal?" "What is normal?" Maria asked. "The old normal is gone." "I know," Ben said, his voice frustrated but not angry. "That's what I mean. He's in there. We're out here. The spring is ours, but the ranch is still his. It feels unfinished." Later that morning, Maria found Samuel sitting under the palo verde tree. He was braiding a thin strip of leather. "You are thinking of him," Samuel said, not looking up from his work. "Aren't you?" Maria asked, sitting beside him. "I think of the man who was lost on his own land. It is a great sadness, but sadness is not a fence. It can be walked through." "How?" Maria asked. "How do we walk through this?" Samuel finished his braid and tied the ends. "You start by walking to a place you both know, and you stand there, not as a winner, not as a loser, as a person on the land." Maria understood. She waited until the afternoon heat began to soften. She did not take the letter. She did not take Ben. She rode Spirit alone, not to the main house, but to the spring. When she arrived, she was not alone. Tom was there. He stood a good distance from the water, still in his work clothes, hatless. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He heard the horse and turned. His body stiffened, ready for another fight. Maria dismounted and let Spirit wander to graze. She walked toward the spring, but stopped far from Tom. She did not look at him. She looked at the water. For several minutes, neither spoke. The spring bubbled its constant song. "I didn't know," Tom said finally. His voice was rough from disuse. "I know you didn't," Maria said. "My father, he never told that story. He only told the story of the work, the building. My grandfather hid the letter for the same reason," Maria said. "Fear." Tom bent down, picked up a small stone, and turned it in his hand. "I spent my whole life being proud of something that wasn't completely mine to be proud of." He threw the stone into the pool. It made a small, dark splash. "What do I do with that?" "You live with it," Maria said, looking at him now. "Like we have lived with the knowing that part of our story was being erased. It is a heavy thing to carry. Now you help carry it." Tom shook his head. The men, Mike, they saw me break. They saw you choose the truth over being right, Maria said. That is a different kind of strength. He was quiet again, his eyes on the disturbed water where the stone had sunk. The promise in that letter, he said. It says the spring is yours. Forever. I will not challenge that. The canyon land too. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. It will be legally yours. Maria listened. It was what she had fought for, but it felt small in the face of the vast hurt around them. The paper is important, she said. But the water does not care about papers. It just flows. It gives life to your cattle in the north pasture too. If we put a fence around it now, we are still choosing sides. Tom looked up, confused. What are you saying? I am saying the spring is our history, but the ranch is now. My brother needs work. Your cattle need water. Mike and the crew need to know their jobs are safe. She took a deep breath. I do not want just a paper saying I won. I want a new way. A way where the water flows for everyone who respects it. Tom stared at her. The anger was all gone. Only a deep, weary thoughtfulness remained. You're talking about a partnership. I am talking about sharing a truth, Maria corrected. The truth is, our stories are tangled here. They cannot be cut apart without hurting the land, so we have to learn to live with the tangle. Tom looked back at the spring. He gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. I don't know how, he admitted. Neither do I, Maria said. We will have to learn. She mounted Spirit and turned the horse back toward home. She did not look back, but she knew he was still standing there, looking at the water, beginning the long and painful work of building a new story on a foundation of truth. The land stretched out before her, the same red rocks, the same scrub, the same wide sky. It had seen the battle. Now it would watch the slow, uncertain work of peace. It was not an ending. It was a hard, new beginning.